This is Marshall Massengill. I'm going to walk you through how to use the hands-on labs for lab 2201-08, module 5. And I'm going to do that first by telling you to go to labs.hol.vmware.com. It's going to bring you to the content catalog. You're going to search in the search bar for 2201-08 if you haven't already enrolled in it. You're going to enroll in the lab and then start the lab. It might pop up a window asking you to test your browser compatibility. You can test it if you'd like. If not, just continue on to the lab. Most browsers will work with the hands-on labs. So as the lab is booting up, what we're going to do is note that there's an end button in this area of the lab. You can use that to end the lab. You might see an extend time button, but chances are your lab's going to be limited to probably 90 minutes. For VMworld. So you'll have 90 minutes to complete the lab. We'll probably go through this in about 30 minutes or so though, this particular section. So as we're continuing to wait for the lab to start up, we're going to click on the table of contents. We're going to go to module 5 and we're going to go to the introduction and then close the table of contents window. When our lab is booted up, what we're going to notice is that it says lab status ready right here on the desktop. And that's going to let us know that the lab has actually booted and is ready to go. You can read the introduction, but it's just going to walk you through a few basic things. For this particular module, it expects it to be done in about 60 minutes. So maybe it'll take about an hour to get done. As we're preparing for module 5, the first thing we've got to do is launch Chrome. Once we've launched Chrome, we're actually going to go into the vRealize automation system. And the very first thing we're going to do is actually run a code stream pipeline after we import it. So to sign in to vRealize automation, you're going to type HOL admin, and then the password is going to be capital V, capital M, and then lowercase where, and then the number 1, and then an exclamation point. So we'll continue to wait for this to load. It's going to open up the vRealize automation page. We're going to click on CodeStream to actually sign in. So CodeStream is going to be open. From there, we're going to import the pipeline that we want to actually use to prepare the module. The particular pipeline, we need to create it rather than apply it. We're going to read from file. And then on the left-hand side over here in the Explorer window that pops up, we're going to click on lab files. We're going to go to this lab, HOL-2201-08, and open it up. And then we're going to click on prepare module 5 pipeline.yaml, YAML. So we're going to open that up. We're going to see a pipeline that gets imported into the window here. We'll click the import button. Once we do that, it's going to say created. We're going to hit close. You'll see that the pipeline has now been created. Under actions, we're going to hit enable on that, and that's going to enable the pipeline. And the next thing we're going to do is hit run to actually run this pipeline. So don't need to type anything in the comments box. We're just going to click run. It's going to say that it successfully has started the pipeline. While we're doing that, we're going to click through the manual over here on this side of the screen. As we're clicking through the manual, it's going to have us go through the steps I just ran through, which is fine. So import the pipeline, again, enable it first, and then execute. So while we're waiting on this pipeline to run, and it does take a minute or two, you're going to open the pipeline itself, and you're actually going to be able to browse around and understand how a code stream pipeline works. So inside of this pipeline, you're going to see that we've got it broken down to some steps. So prepare, create, and deploy. The prepare step is just getting the project ID and bearer token using some REST calls back into VRA. And then we're creating the install for the monitor agents and creating the project itself, so the naming template. And then it's deploying the distributed app. And then at the last step, we're going to do some removal. So again, the actual hands-on labs manual for this particular module is going to walk us through those exact same components. So you can see what each one of them does. You can read a little bit more about it if you'd like. So we're going to continue on through the lab. So the next thing we're going to do is view the pipeline execution. We're going to do that by closing out of the pipeline itself. We're going to hit OK because we didn't make any changes, but we're going to discard any that we might have made. And then while we're doing that, we're going to go to executions. And it's still in the process of running right now. You can hit the refresh button to actually see that. So looks like we're going to have to wait for it for another minute or so. So while we're waiting, again, if you want to read through about anything for the lab, it's going to be in the manual that's on the right-hand side of the page when it comes up for the hands-on labs. So we're continuing to wait. We can go in and actually see where things are at. So while we're waiting, we can get a more granular view of where the pipeline is actually at as far as its execution goes. We can even hit refresh here instead. So we're currently at the deploy step, so it's deploying the distributed website. So as I mentioned earlier, this lab is covering a distributed deployment for vRealize automation and monitoring that distributed deployment using vRealize operations and vRealize log insight. So we'll be going through and actually using those tools once we get the deployment. While we're continuing to wait, what we can do is actually go back into the pipeline and we'll open it up again. I suspect the deployment is going to take a few more minutes. This being a cloud environment and one where lots of people are using it for hands-on labs means that things can vary in how long they take to deploy based on how utilized the environment is. So we are at the deployment step. You can see inside the deployment step, this is actually a task named deploy distributed website. It's using a cloud template inside of VRA to actually run the deployment. It's creating the deployment as the action that it's doing. We can see the deployment name. We can see how each of the systems within the deployment is configured. So we can notice that they're Ubuntu 18 systems. There is some output as well for this particular step within the deployment. And then there's no notifications configured. There's no rollback if the pipeline fails, but there are options to do that. We're going to hit close on this again. We'll hit OK on that. And we'll go back into executions and see how we're doing. Looks like we're still deploying. As I said, this can take a little bit. So we just have to be patient with it. While we're waiting, other things you can do, explore the CodeStream console in general. On the left-hand side here in the navigation pane, you can see that we've got a bunch of different dashboards, and you can even add custom dashboards to CodeStream if you'd like. Along with that, there's operations for users involving email and approvals, as well as pipelines that we can view where we were adding and viewing the pipelines earlier. There's custom integrations that can be added to CodeStream. And then there's lots of configuration, both for projects, endpoints, and variables, and then triggers using Git, Gerrit, and Docker. Git triggers in particular, one of my personal favorites. It's something you can go in and actually configure Git to run as a triggered operation, and then either based on the commit or based on something else that you have configured for the Git trigger, get feedback into the CodeStream process. So hit refresh again. Still waiting on the deployment to finish. As I said, it can take a few minutes. It is actually deploying the applications. You just have to be patient on that. Refresh again. Looks like it's still running. I guess we can go back into the pipelines real quick and look over the pipeline one more time. So as I mentioned, we're actually issuing REST calls against vRealize automation to do most of the steps in this pipeline. So this one in particular is getting the bearer token from VRA and saving that off, and then getting a project ID as well and using that later on. So once we have that, so you can see in the header, we've got the authorization utilizing the actual bearer token that we pulled in the previous step. This is creating the install monitoring agent subscription, which we'll actually look at a little more detail later. So it's creating a subscription within vRealize automation using the install monitoring agent task to actually install the monitoring agents on the VMs. So our subscription installs the monitoring agent for vRealize operations on the VMs. Create and remove the monitoring agent subscription. And again, update project naming template is just going to update the naming template. And then the step we're at, deploying the distributed application. So from that, we're going to get the get the Ubuntu deployment ID from the previous step. So we'll get the deployment ID. And then get Windows deployment ID would be something we're doing if we were using Windows, we're not. So remove the HOL Ubuntu deployments and remove the Windows deployment. So it's actually removing the deployments from the system that are already there. Again, we're going to hit OK when we close out of that so we can discard the changes. We'll go back into executions. Hey, there we go. So it's completed finally. Like I said, it can take a few minutes. Now that we've done that, we're going to go back to our hands-on labs manual over here. And we're going to switch over to Cloud Assembly. So click the little 9-dot icon in the corner. And along with clicking that 9-dot icon, we're going to go to Cloud Assembly. And we're going to confirm that everything's been deployed. So if we click under, as I mentioned, it's removing the old deployments. So those are still in the process of being removed. We can ignore those, but we can see that it's actually deployed our application stack over here. One thing we're going to want to do is take note of the IP addresses that are here. And the way I'm going to do that is just by grabbing a screenshot real quick of this area. But for you at home, I would either write that down. You can also take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. You need to note the host names and the IP addresses for each of the systems here, including the load balancer. The next thing we're going to do is actually verify that our website's up and running. So this is the website of the SciTech Industrial Corporation. So we want to go to the IP address for the load balancer. So 172.16.20.5 will open a new tab. So 172.16.20.5 in the browser here. We'll hit enter. It's going to say it's not secure, but it's just because it's an HTTP connection instead of HTTPS. Ooh, hoping that's working. One 172.16.20.5. That looks correct. Is waiting for cache. Let's check our other systems while we're waiting on that, just in case something else going on and it's not the load balancer. So it is trying to load something else. So it is actually loading. Let's try that one more time. 172.16.20.5. There, we can actually see it's loading. It may take a second to load. It's okay if it does, but it should load. We'll give it just a second. There we go. So while we're here, we can actually click around the different items in the catalog if we wanted to. So there's a flux capacitor you could click on. I'm not going to sit here and wait for this to load. It's trying to reach out and it'll eventually time out for what it's doing and then load the page. Apologies for that, but it is what it's doing. So yeah, we've noted the information here, which is what's important. We're going to continue on. We'll go into the next scenario. So you can read about the scenario, but what we're actually going to do is just go in and install the agents and configure the agents for vRealize operations. So we're going to open up a new tab. And then on the new tab, we're actually going to open up the vRealize operations console. And when we open this page, we're going to need to change local users to VIDM auth source and then hit redirect. That'll log us in. It's just redirecting the system to the VIDM service for authorization. Should log us in as HOL admin with the password. If it doesn't, you may need to type those in. Should automatically do it though. And then once we're here, what we're going to do is click on monitor applications and then manage agents. And that's going to bring up our page here for lots of different applications and agents that we have set up. So in this area over here, we're going to hit PRD. And when we do that, it's going to create a filter to filter on systems that have PRD in the name. So we can see our SQL Server and our 3 web servers that we have set up to use that load balancer. So now that we've done that, we're actually going to select everything in the list by selecting the Select All button first. And then we're going to install the vRealize Operations Monitoring Agent by clicking on the Install button over here. So common username and password is what we want to leave that as. We'll hit Next. In the username field, you want to type HOL user. And then in the password field, it's going to be that famous capital V, capital M, lowercase WARE, and then the number 1 and exclamation point. Leave the checkbox for create runtime user on Linux virtual machines. It's going to give you a summary page. These are the systems we're going to install the agent on. We're going to hit install agent. And it's actually going to kick off the installation of the agent. While we are waiting, I'm going to click through the catalog over here real quick, or the manual rather. It's going to sit here. We're going to need to refresh it a couple of times. You'll see that it's got install in progress. This is going to take a little bit of time, so we're going to be patient and click through the manual, and we'll go and look at some other things while we're doing that. I mentioned earlier, we've got those installation steps, the subscription, where we're actually installing the application monitoring agent on the VMs. So to actually see that in action or see what it looks like, we're going to go back over to the Cloud Assembly tab, and we're actually going to click on Extensibility. And then under subscriptions, we'll actually see those. And we can actually click on one of those and open it. So this install application monitoring agent we can open. We can notice that the subscription is enabled. It's filtering based on a particular topic. So if we've got this custom properties agent equals Telegraph condition that's met, then we're actually going to filter for that. We also can tell that this is a blocking subscription, meaning that other subscriptions aren't going to run after it until it finishes. It's not going to try and do anything during that process. So I'm going to hit cancel here because we're not going to change anything. We can also see the remove application monitoring agent subscription, which is here. So again, you can see it's filtered. It's also blocking. So there's timeout and priority that are both set. So they will run for any project, I guess, is the other thing to keep in mind that has that custom property for Telegraph set. Okay, so we're going to switch back to Orchestrator now, or rather, we're going to switch in the system to Orchestrator. vRealize Orchestrator, not to be confused with vRealize Operations, 2 completely different things. But in here, we can actually view the workflows that are being run to install those Telegraph agents, which is what vRealize Operations is using. So under workflows, we can open up the lab folder. So HOL 220108, we can see the 2 workflows that are in here, install Telegraph agent and remove Telegraph agent. Some things to note inside of vRealize Orchestrator, there's different tabs for variables, inputs, outputs, schema. Most of the work is actually going to come from a couple of different things here with variables where we have different values set. Some of these are set within the workflow itself, and some of them are actually set via a configuration element outside of the workflow. So you can actually see that there's a configuration element here for the sleep time and auth source and password and username. Those are stored as secure strings. So we click on that, we'll get the Orchestrator client to come up for the configuration element and then the variables it has. I'm not going to change anything here. I'm going to hit close on that. We'll go back to workflows and go back to the install Telegraph agent workflow. You can see there's also some inputs for input properties. There's no output set for this workflow. And then the schema itself is where a lot of the logic is actually happening. So it's parsing input parameters, getting a token, getting resources. These are actually automation scripts that are run as part of vRealize orchestrator. So along with workflows, you can also have actions that are run, which is what these little gear icons are. So and you can see there's also things that can get triggered in multiple different directions based on what's coming in and the direction it goes. So same thing here, scripting actions. Of note, you can do scripting in vRealize Orchestrator in a couple of different ways. There's the JavaScript engine. Along with JavaScript, there's also PowerShell and Python. So different ways that you can actually program this. For more information on that, I recommend looking at the vRealize Orchestrator labs that exist. So I've been through most of this with the workflows, so I'm going to kind of skip over a few things here. The different parts of the workflow are covered in the lab manual if you want to read about them. What we want to do is switch back over to vRealize operations. And at this point, our agent is running. The install was a success. And we should see that services are discovered. We don't yet. And part of why we're not seeing that yet is because those haven't been pulled in just yet. It's coming. It's going to take another minute or so. What we might do is pop back over to vRealize Orchestrator and look at that again while we're waiting on this to be populated. You're going to see a couple different services pop in once that happens. So I'm going to pop back over here. While we're waiting, we'll look at the remove Telegraph agent workflow. Again, pretty similar workflow to the install one, except obviously doing things in reverse to remove the agent. So getting the agent status is actually a action that gets run. You can see the text of the action. This isn't to be confused with a script, though, a scriptable item, which would be something like parse input properties here. So scriptable items exist within the workflow themselves. Actions exist as actions that are independent of the workflow. All right. We'll pop back over here and see if we've collected things yet. Still waiting on this services discovered configured to populate. So while we're waiting on that, it'll take probably just another minute. We can click on the version history. You can see information about the different versions of a workflow as they are in here. If you go into edit the workflow, you can actually version it off to different versions. You can do, it doesn't have to be a whole number of versions. You can do incremental as well. And then the audit tab would be for if we're actually running this and we want to get information out of it after it's being run. Same thing with debug, it's kind of where that comes into play. So again, look at inputs and outputs. We can see that it just has inputs as input properties for this particular workflow. Let's see if we've got stuff. There we go. So now we can see I hit the refresh button, and now we can see that our services that have been discovered for these systems. So, okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to back up one page here. Sorry about that. So select one of the virtual machines with a prod web name. So we'll go with this prod-web 1203. And what we are going to do is click the manage service icon, which is going to be this guy. And we're going to click on Apache from the list that's here. So for the display name, we need to configure that as prd-web1203 underscore retail. So this is the retail website that we're setting up. So you can see that here in the next step as well. And then in the status page URL, what we want to do is configure that for http://172.16.20.4, which happens to be the IP address I pulled earlier. Yours might be different. In theory, it should be the same thing, but that's not a guarantee. Make sure you confirm that against the information you stored earlier. And then /server dash status question mark auto. And what that's going to do is give us a status page for the monitoring for this particular system. So I'm just verifying that real quick. I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to hit close. So that's the first of 3 web servers. We're going to do the same thing. You'll also notice this little spinning icon gets instantiated now that we've clicked that off. So we're going to continue to do these, and we'll add some more information. So again, we're going to do this one and Apache, and then the display name for this one is prd-web 1204 _ retail. And then the status page, http://172.16.20.3. For me anyway, that's the IP address that was in my list earlier. And then /server-status !auto. So we can confirm that here, same thing. We're gonna hit save just after we confirm it one more time. Save. We'll hit close. I'm gonna do one more, not for that guy, but for this one. So 1205. So again, Apache. We can click through again here. So prd-web 1205 _ retail, and then http:// 172.16.20.2 /server-status !auto. And we're going to hit save, and we're going to hit close, and you're going to see all 3 of those are now populating. In the next step, we would actually normally see that this has a little green check mark next to it showing that it's good, but we're still waiting for the moment. It's okay. So it's collecting data though. So under the prod SQL, we're also going to add some information for that. We're going to choose MySQL instead this time. So for this, it's prd-SQL 1202 _ retail. And then from the port for SQL, we want to type 3306, username OC user, and then the password is going to be VMWARE1 ! So capital V, capital M. We don't need to set anything else. That's all we need to set for this. So we're going to hit save. We're going to hit close. And it's also going to be collecting some information. So we're still collecting information for the moment. So while we're doing that, we're going to review the troubleshooting and application dashboard. Although this shouldn't take too long to actually get information. We'll wait anyway for the moment. So again, we're going to look at the troubleshooting and application dashboard, which won't populate until we actually get that data. So we're going to have to wait for just a second. Shouldn't take too long, just a couple minutes. We are approaching about the 30-minute mark. As I said earlier, somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour for this particular lab. Well, I tell you what, we'll continue on and see if we can get information without that. But it is populating the data, so we might come back to this in just a minute. We'll look at dashboards, and then under dashboards, what we want to do is click on the little 3 bars that are in a row here. And then under that, we want to search for a particular dashboard. So troubleshoot rather. And then under performance, consumer, troubleshoot, and application is where we want to look. So, and then while we're looking there, what we want to do is pull up one of the SQL systems, so the SQL system, in fact. So we'll click on that. We'll get some additional information out of it. So if we actually click on this guy, oh, it's still populating. So we don't actually have the database just yet. So we're gonna have to wait for just a minute. I tell you what, while we're doing that, we're gonna go back in and we'll kind of monitor applications and then manage agents. Yeah, they're still populating. We're gonna have to wait for this. So just bear with us. It's gonna take a minute for it to actually collect the data that it needs to collect. Oh, there we go. We're starting to populate now. You can see the little green check mark next to Apache HTTPD. So it's actually pulling in that data now. You can see the one instance is there, data receiving. So that one's actually got data. I'm guessing the other two and then the MySQL system won't be far behind. It does take a minute, like I said. So we'll just keep clicking refresh until we see what we're looking for. There we go. One more system. It's got that green check mark next to it, just like we're looking for instead of the spinning wheel here. So just another minute. Bear with us. You know, the hurry up and wait is not fun, but it's part of the process with using these products. They are doing monitoring, so they have to actually collect data first. There's one more green check mark, so we're waiting on this last one. Again, give it another minute or so here. In fact, while it's doing that, I'm actually going to go ahead and go back to the dashboards tab because I don't have any reason to think it won't work. So while we're waiting on that one, in fact, you can see where it's working now because we actually have pulled in the database. So it's collecting some data from it. And you'll be able to see the object types over here once it's got a little bit more. So we'll be patient with that just a little bit. But what you can do is actually see the KPIs and for the web system. So while we're waiting, so you get requests per second, you get uptime, you get the health and efficiency of the application based on the information that vRealize operations has configured. So it's all based off of the content pack that you got installed. So we'll go back to the MySQL system real quick. Looks like it's still collecting data, so it doesn't quite have everything yet. So it looks like it's still collecting data. So as we are waiting, you'll be able to see the information here. So some of it's there, like I said, you just have to wait. So We've already explored, so I'm actually clicking through the manual now. So we want to go to dashboard sharing. And what we want to do is actually share this dashboard with a particular group. So the web admin team group. So we'll include them here. We'll close out of that. So we've shared the dashboard, but they might actually not have access yet. So one of the things we're going to have to do is allow them to actually view the cloud projects and applications. So we'll have to go under administration and then access and access control. And then under access control, we're going to go to user groups. And then we want to expand this guy and click on edit next to it. So, and then one of the things we want to do once we have this open is we want to actually scroll down in this window and find the vRealize, VMware vRealize application monitoring system. And we're going to click on that. And then before we close out of this window, the other thing we want to do is go into custom groups. And then under cloud project, after we expand that, we're going to click on web hosting workloads and then propagation, which will propagate it down through the various items under that. And we're going to hit OK. So we've shared out the dashboard that we had now. So along with that, the other thing we want to do is open a new Chrome browser tab. So now that we've done that, and navigate to Log Insight. So we'll click on Log Insight. And that's going to load vRealize Log Insight. Might take a second for it to load. Normally pretty quick. So make sure VMware Identity Manager is selected and then log in via SSO. It'll actually log you in. So we want to view the agent status here. So administration, and then agents. We want to click. And we want to, now that we're here, go to Linux Ubuntu for this. And it's going to filter out our various systems. So Linux-Ubuntu. We've got it filtered down to these 4 now, which is awesome. And then what we're going to do is actually change that filtering just a little bit. We're going to actually scroll down on this list, and we're going to find the Apache CLF-HTTP. CLF stands for Common Log Format, by the way. -HTTP server Linux. And we're going to hit the little copy template button next to that. And what we're going to do is change the second part of this where it says HTTP server Linux to Linux web servers. And we're going to hit copy. And that's going to create a new template to work off of. And we need to filter out our list here. So just like we did just a little bit ago, we're going to change IP address to OS and then matches to starts with and then Ubuntu as one of our filters. We'll click add filter after that, and we're going to add one more filter. And we're going to add, in addition to the OS starts with Ubuntu, we are also going to click and change IP address to hostname, and then matches, and then asterisk, PRD, asterisk. And see if that does that. And then from there, one of the things we want to do, this refresh icon, which will suddenly change that from 5 items to 4. And then we want to save the new group. So if we scroll down in the window, hit save new group. And then we want to click on dashboards, Apache CLF, and then CLF overview. And it'll take a second for this data to actually populate with anything. In fact, we're going to monitor the load. And the way we're going to do that to actually give it something to show here, we're going to minimize Chrome entirely and then open up the lab files directory. And then under HOL-2201-08, we're going to open that up. And then we're going to open this URL stress.exe application. And then in this URL field, the thing we're going to do is type in the IP address of our load balancer that we had earlier. So not the web hosts themselves, but the load balancer. It's going to be 172.16.20.5. At least that was what mine was. We also need to change the field for the number of times we're actually going to run things. And we're going to change that to 500. So just like that. And we're going to hit run. And it'll take a second. So it's actually running through the request right now. As we do that, we're going to click back on the Chrome. We're going to open this guy, and we're actually going to look under the overview. So scroll down to overview. We'll look at page views. We're going to hit the refresh button now. You can see the page views is slowly ticking up. So 781, 794, it should stop around 800. So 806. And we've got some other data too. So active remote hosts, popular pages, which is just / because that's the main page. So pretty good information there. Along with that, we're going to switch back to vRealize operations. So, and then look at the dashboards tab here, just like we were doing earlier. And then we actually have under recent dashboards this troubleshoot an application. So we can actually look here and see the MySQL database did finally populate. As I said, it would. It just takes a minute sometimes. So you can see the information here. Along with that, we can see other information about our web servers and their health. So we can see that it's request per second of 0.038 requests per second. So idle workers, busy workers, CPU load. So total bytes, again, all the information's here. So for each one of these, and it's pretty well balanced. It's not perfect. It's pretty good. So our load balancer is doing its job. Obviously, over a longer period of time with more stuff, balance even better probably. So we'll keep clicking through. We can observe the different things that are here. So this gives us lots of insight into the operations kind of things. And we have visibility, which is really important because it gives you that insight into your environment. So you can tell if a machine needs more resources or if it's actually a laggy application that's causing your problems. You have a lot more information available to make smart choices about your environment. So that is the conclusion of scenario 5. Now that we've finished it, what we're going to do is want to end the lab by clicking on the end button. Alternatively, if you want to hang out and do the next lesson, you can, but I'm not going to do that with you, obviously. But I hope you enjoyed the time we spent together and enjoy the rest of VMworld.